Here is the transcript you provided, combined into a single continuous block of text with all the line breaks removed. The 2026 World Cup is less than 24 hours old, and it has already produced the image FIFA spent months and millions of dollars trying to prevent. Let's start with what actually happened on the first day of this tournament, because it tells you everything you need to know about the gap that has defined this World Cup from the moment it was awarded. The opening match, Mexico versus South Africa at the Banorte Stadium in Mexico City, was what it was supposed to be: 80,824 fans packed into the ground that hosted to previous World Cup finals. The noise was extraordinary. The opening ceremony was extraordinary. Shakira performed with Burna Boy in front of one of the most passionate football crowds in the Americas. Mexico equalized late. The atmosphere was everything a World Cup opener should be. The Aztec delivered. It almost always does. And then came the second match, South Korea versus Czechia at Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, the second match of the biggest World Cup in history, a fixture between two competitive football nations, each with millions of fans worldwide, each with players performing at the highest levels of European club football, and the cameras couldn't hide it: empty sections, multiple rows of vacant seats clearly visible throughout the match, particularly in the VIP areas and in the sections directly opposite. The broadcast cameras, not a handful of no-shows, not a thin section here and there, visible, sustained, documentable patches of empty seats in a stadium hosting a World Cup group match. The Mirror published its story within hours. FIFA World Cup suffers immediate humiliation with thousands of empty seats on very first day of competition. That is not an opposition newspaper editorializing. That is what the camera showed, and the camera showed it to every football fan watching around the world. The question is why? And the honest answer is that this didn't come from nowhere. The seeds of this moment were planted months ago, watered consistently throughout the buildup, and they germinated precisely on cue on opening day in Guadalajara in front of every television audience on earth. To understand why those seats are empty, you need to understand what happened in the weeks before the tournament began, and it requires going back further than that too, because the empty seats at Guadalajara are not a 2026 problem. They're a FIFA problem that has been building across multiple tournaments and has finally arrived at a point where the consequences are undeniable. Let's start with the immediate cause, the pricing. As recently as the start of June, FIFA quietly slashed prices across all 100 for World Cup matches. That detail, confirmed by the Mirror, is significant for two reasons. First, because it happened after months of FIFA publicly defending its pricing model as a reflection of unprecedented demand. Second, because even after slashing prices, even after the Attorney General's subpoenas forced attention onto the marketplace, even after the resale market collapsed and group stage tickets were available for under $100, the seats in Guadalajara were still empty last night. FIFA also returned 70% of its block-booked hotel rooms across major host cities. The hotel blocks that shaped revenue forecasts, informed staffing decisions, and created the commercial case for thousands of businesses to structure their summer around a World Cup wave that was going to arrive. 70% of those rooms released quietly. The wave that was supposed to arrive, described by multiple industry respondents in the American Hotel and Lodging Association survey with a single word: non-event. The pricing story is the one that generated the most anger online in the months before the tournament. And the anger was specific, documented, and entirely reasonable. Between October 2025 and April 2026, FIFA raised ticket prices for more than 90 of the 104 World Cup matches by an average of 34%. Fans who bought early, who trusted the process, who applied in ballots and purchased at the prices FIFA set, those fans are sitting on non-refundable tickets that are now worth significantly less than they paid. There is no refund mechanism. FIFA's terms were explicit from the start. At the same time, FIFA's official resale platform, which the organization built, operates, and takes 15% from each side of every transaction, allowed tickets to be listed at extraordinary prices. A single World Cup final ticket appeared on the exchange at over $2 million. Category 1 seats for the final started at $10,990 at primary market. The Attorney Generals of New York and New Jersey responded by issuing formal subpoenas to FIFA, describing what fans experienced as a gauntlet of confusion, fake scarcity, and impossibly high prices. And underneath all of the pricing story, there's the access story, which is the deeper reason the seats are empty. Not just in Guadalajara, across the tournament, for qualified nations, Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal have fans who cannot travel to the United States to watch their teams. Not because they chose not to come, because travel restrictions prevent them from entering the host country. Iran's group matches have more unsold tickets than any other team in the competition. The Iranian Football Federation accused organizers of revoking their ticket allocation before the tournament opened. Those accusations have not been addressed publicly by FIFA. Fans from 75 countries faced halted visa processing that created uncertainty about travel timelines incompatible with booking a tournament trip. European flight bookings for the summer were running 14% below last year, despite the dollar being 12% weaker against the euro, making the trip cheaper in currency terms. The fans who didn't come weren't making an economic decision, they were making a decision about whether the experience of traveling to the United States felt safe, accessible, and worth attempting, and in significant numbers, they decided it didn't. And FIFA's official referee, Omar Abdelkadir Artan of Somalia, voted Best Referee in Africa in 2025, selected by FIFA through a 3-year merit process, was stopped at Miami International Airport and denied entry. He told the New York Times he was questioned for 11 hours before being sent back. FIFA's response was, 5 words, "We are not involved in host country immigration processes." That phrase, "we are not involved," applies equally to the empty seats. FIFA set the prices. FIFA chose the host. FIFA built the resale platform. FIFA canceled the hotel blocks. FIFA nominated the referee who was turned away. FIFA is not involved in why those seats are empty. But here's where the historical context matters, because Newsweek and Yahoo Sports both published pieces today pointing out something that is genuinely important for understanding what happened in Guadalajara. Empty seats at World Cups are not new. They are not unique to 2026. In South Africa 2010, multiple group stage matches had clearly visible empty sections. A Greece versus South Korea match had thousands of empty seats, prompting FIFA to launch a formal investigation. FIFA blamed corporate and government ticket holders who had received seats but didn't show up. The total attendance for that tournament was strong, nearly 3.2 million. But the group stage images were embarrassing enough to require an official inquiry. In Russia 2018, the Egypt versus Uruguay match at Yekaterinburg Arena drew an official attendance of 27,015 in a stadium with a capacity of 33,000. FIFA confirmed the discrepancy, acknowledged the empty seats, and said it was investigating the factors, including no-shows. In CAR 2022, The Athletic reported that despite all games being sold out on FIFA's official platform, many seats were visibly empty for the opening games of the tournament. This continued throughout the competition, including at the final between Argentina and France in December. The match that produced one of the greatest 90 minutes in World Cup history played in a stadium with visible empty sections. The pattern is consistent. FIFA sells tickets. Not all of those tickets produce bodies in seats. The gap between allocated tickets and actual attendees is a structural feature of how FIFA's ticketing model works, not a coincidence specific to any single tournament. But here is what makes 2026 different from every previous edition where empty seats appeared. In 2010, the empty seats were blamed on transportation issues and no-show corporate holders, problems that existed within the system but weren't caused by the system's fundamental design. In 2022, the empty seats were attributed to the unusual car context, the heat, the logistics, the cultural unfamiliarity for many fans. In 2026, the empty seats are the direct measurable consequence of a pricing model that FIFA designed and defended throughout the build-up, a model that raised prices 34% while international fan travel was declining, that listed tickets at millions of dollars on its own exchange, that blocked fans from 4 qualified nations from entering the host country, that turned away a FIFA-selected referee at the border. The empty seats in Guadalajara yesterday are not a transportation problem or a no-show problem. They are a pricing and access problem that FIFA created and that FIFA defended publicly at every opportunity right up until it quietly slashed prices in the first week of June in a last-minute effort to fill the stands. The VIP sections were the most visibly empty. That detail carries a specific irony. The most expensive seats, the sections furthest from the ordinary fan, empty, while the sections occupied by people who found a way to afford a ticket, who traveled despite the barriers, who genuinely wanted to be there, those were fuller. Football fills itself from the bottom up. The fans who love it most, who travel furthest, who sacrifice most to be there, are the ones who create the atmosphere. When you price them out and lock them out and turn away the referee who was supposed to officiate their match, the stadium looks like Guadalajara looked last night, and the cameras saw it, and every football fan on earth saw it through the cameras. And FIFA, having spent months telling the world this was the most in-demand tournament in history, had to watch the visual evidence that it wasn't on the second match of the first day. So where does this leave the tournament going forward? Because there are 102 matches still to be played, and the question of whether the empty seats in Guadalajara were an opening day anomaly or the defining image of this World Cup will be answered in the coming weeks. The best case is the one that history occasionally delivers. The early group stage matches, particularly the ones between nations without large traveling fan bases, often have the lowest attendance. As the tournament progresses, as the knockout stage approaches, as the matches get bigger and the stakes get higher, attendance typically improves. The final at MetLife will be full, the quarterfinals and semifinals will likely be full. The question is what happens in the 20 or 30 group stage matches involving nations whose fans face the barriers we've discussed. The worst realistic scenario is that the Guadalajara image repeats, that the cameras keep finding empty sections in matches involving African, Asian, and Middle Eastern nations whose fans couldn't or didn't come, that the cumulative visual evidence match after match with visible gaps in the stands becomes the story of this tournament's atmosphere in the way that the football should be the story. FIFA has no quick fix for this. The pricing model is locked in. The access barriers are not within FIFA's direct control, and they've made clear they consider themselves not involved. The Attorney General investigation will continue. The empty hotel rooms won't fill overnight. What FIFA has, what it always has, is the football itself, and the football on day one, despite everything surrounding it, produced moments of genuine beauty. The Aztec was full and extraordinary. Mexico equalized with drama. And somewhere in Guadalajara, despite the empty sections, players from South Korea and Czechia competed at the highest level with total commitment to the match in front of them. That tension between the extraordinary football and the embarrassing infrastructure is the 2026 World Cup. The question is which one wins the next 6 weeks? What do you think? Does the empty seat story feel like a one-day problem to you, or do you think it's going to define how this tournament is remembered? And given everything we've talked about today, the pricing, the access barriers, and the Guadalajara images, do you think FIFA will acknowledge what caused this, or will they find another explanation? Leave it in the comments. These are the conversations this channel exists for. Hit the like button if this gave you the full picture. Subscribe if you want to follow every angle of this tournament properly. We're here every day until July 19th.